Teutonic Magician. As there are several distinct kinds of Teutonic magic, so too are there several distinct kinds of Teutonic magicians. The first kind is not really a magician in the strictest sense, but rather a priest or priestess. This is the elder of the trough, sometimes also known by the Old Norse terms Godi or Githya, for male and the female respectively. The other two kinds of magicians in the narrower sense, those who seek not only to maintain or restore the sacred order of the universe, but also to make changes within it, in accordance with their own wills, are the practitioners of Galster or Seidr. Both may be known by the general Old Norse term Vidki, meaning wise one. Whether for religious or magical purposes, the practitioner of true Teutonic magic must undergo a period of preparation before the right pathway can be followed. This preparation comes in two forms. First, the would-be Vidki must steep him or herself in the lore of the Teutons. The mythology, the legends, and the lore, the cosmologies, and the theologies should be learned so that thinking in such terms becomes virtually natural. For those interested in becoming rune masters, the runic tradition must also be learned in a similar way. This provides a traditional inner landscape for further work that is authentic and accurate, so that the work done within it cannot lead you astray, but instead will further your insight. The second part of a would-be Vidki's preparation can be undertaken simultaneously with the first. This basic training in concentration and visualization, the latter element is common to success in any form of magic. However, one of the main elements of current Teutonic magic is the will to link the self with the higher principles of the full soul. For this purpose to be fulfilled, the first element is absolutely essential. The Teutonic magician, or Vidki, is a very independent sort. In ancient times, as well as today, many prefer to work alone or in very small groups, loosely affiliated with a guild. This is not true of the religious tradition, which seeks to involve the entire community. The independence of the Teutonic magician goes beyond the social aspect and is also exemplified in his or her magical character. The Vidki, and especially the rune master, does not normally seek the magical aid of magical forces outside himself, but rather seeks to influence the course of events directly. The standard of the medieval magician evoking and coercing angels or demons to do his bidding by the power of supposedly higher forces outside himself are almost totally foreign to the Teutonic mode of magical working. The Teutonic magical world. In the Teutonic view of the world and of humanity, there have always been many dimensions or worlds. In the larger world, or macrocosm, this is illustrated in the lore concerning the world tree, Yggdrasil. This tree is said to consist of 9 realms, or worlds, the symbolic arrangement of which can be seen in Figure 1. The actual arrangement of the worlds could not be effected in 2 or 3 dimensions, as it is always clear in every account that the tree is really a symbol of multi-dimensional construct of some kind. Asgard is the kingdom of the Aesir, and those Vanir who have come to live among the Aesir. Hell is the realm of the dead and of the forces of universal dissolution. Light Elf home is the kingdom of the elves, demigods, and divinized ancestral spirits. This is the dimension of the structures of the intellect. Opposite this is Svartalheim, or Swart Elf is another name for the dwarf. The dwarves, like the light elves, are essentially ancestral spirits or demigods, or perhaps something different. The dwarves are, however, not of an intellectual nature, but rather embody the structuralizing and formative forces in the world. Vanaholm, or Vanaheim, is the realm of the Vanes, or Vanir, which are further described below. Opposite this is Ettenheim, which is the realm of primeval forces of blind, non-conscious chaos and order. And Etten is a non-conscious construct. The realms of Muspelheim and Niflheim are the realms of cosmic fire and ice. It is from these two extremes of cosmic activity that the universe comes into being. Between and among all of these opposing forces is the realm of all potential, the blessed land of Midgard, the enclosure in the midst of it all. In it lives humankind, the only other entity in the cosmos that shares the gift of consciousness with the gods and goddesses. The soul. According to Teutonic myth, tradition, the first man and woman were formed by the gods of consciousness, Woden, Willi, and Way, or Odin, Vili, and Ve. They were formed from trees. Humans are often referred to in the poetic language of the North with arboreal metaphors, all of which points to the essential link between the idea of the tree on the cosmic scale, Yggdrasil, and the individual human scale. The multi-dimensional pattern of existence found in the Yggdrasil is also present in the essence of a human being. Within the Teutonic tradition, the human being is thought to be made up of complex factors, all coming together in a certain place and time to give shape to a unique manifestation, you. Some of these factors may, however, pre-exist the particular manifestation, or may indeed live on after the present manifestation has dissolved. By the same token, the truth about the human being is something much more than what can readily be seen. The ancient Teutons had dozens of terms for various aspects of the human body and soul, each used with a technical accuracy that might put even a modern psychologist to shame. Speakers of languages have many terms for the fine distinctions between that they know well. This is why the Eskimos may have 15 different words for white, because they have been overly sensitized to that which is white. The individual human being is, according to Teutonic tradition, really a body/soul or psychosomatic complex. The body is one aspect of this, as is the mind, the memory, and the person as well as collective, the heart, the will, and certain magical functions that individuals may or may not have acquired, or of which some individuals may have more than one. The acquisition or strengthening of these magical bodies is one of the main tasks of Teutonic Magick and other spiritual work. All exercises of the will and consciousness increase this power. Figure 1, where it was describing Yggdrasil and its relation to being a bridge between the 9 realms and how the 9 realms were laid out. Aspects of Teutonic Magick. The Troth. This one's important. Teutonic Magick is firmly rooted in the essence of the Teutonic religion. This religion is variously known as Odinism, due to the fact that Odin is the chief of the Teutonic gods, as Asatru, which is an Old Norse term for the troth of the gods, or simply the most straightforwardly as the troth. The term troth is just a simple direct English word that means faith or loyalty. The traditions of the troth are contained in the Poetic Edda, the Prose Edda, the Icelandic sagas, other epics of the Teutonic peoples, such as the Beowulf of the Anglo-Saxons, as well as the folklore of these people. This is a vast body of well-documented evidence that made the revival of the elder ways quite easy once all the sources were collected and correctly interpreted. Historically, the fate of the troth was, of course, closely tied to the fate of other aspects of Teutonic spirituality. Whereas the religious aspects tended to find their way into the literary and folkloristic expressions of the Teutons, the more specifically magical aspects became concealed within and behind the new imported magical forms from the south and east, Rome, Greece, Egypt, and the Middle East. This process of concealment and cultural submersion, along with confusion, went on until fairly recent times, when, beginning with the Romantic movement in Europe, people began to look at their own national traditions in an objective but sympathetic way. Although the history of the revival of the troth can be traced back to the time of its official demise at the hands of medieval evangelists and corrupt monarchs, For our purposes here, it is only necessary to outline its most recent phase. At the close of the 1960s, there was a worldwide upsurge in the interest in the Teutonic religious traditions. In Germany, old societies were renewed. In America and England, new ones were formed. In England, the Odinic rite was founded, which continues to be the chief exponent of the Teutonic Troth in the British Isles today. In this country, there was the Asatru Free Assembly, which was decentralized and disbanded in the middle 1980s. Not in the book, but nowadays we have TAC, which is the Asatru community. It's a vastly large online community. This was not due to a lack of interest, but rather to an overabundance of chaotic influences. As a traditional synthesis of the multiform spirituality of the Teutonic peoples, there has arisen in this country an organization known as the Ring of Troth. The Ring of Troth is a combination of a strictly and traditionally trained priesthood and a loose confederation of local groups called kindreds. It is considered the birthright of everyone who feels drawn to the Teutonic Troth by their ethnic or spiritual heritage to practice that troth freely and rightly. The Troth was established religion of our ancestors, and most true folk want to make it so again. One of the mainstays of the Troth is the idea that there is a folk soul. That is, there is something most would call spiritual that is inherited along genetic lines within a folk group. Some call this metagenetics. Ultimately, metagenetics is simply the idea that there is something of a spiritual path encoded in the genetic material of any people. This spiritual path will, by its very nature, be the path of least resistance to spiritual development in any person belonging to that particular group.